Well, Natureland started back in 1965. It was actually my dad that started Natureland. It's a bit of a long story, but he was a very keen fish keeper, tropical fish keeper. We lived in Yorkshire at the time, just outside Leeds. I was only 2 and my brother was 5. And he was the president of the local aquarium society. He bred fish in his garage and in the bedrooms and everything. There was fish tanks everywhere. He was an insurance man at the time. Didn't really want to do that for the rest of his life, and he saw an advert in one of the fish keeping magazines for a new animal establishment being set up in Skegness that had an aquarium. The aquarium was the key word there. So he applied to be the manager and he got the job. So we all trailed down the A1 back in 1965, and to cut a long story short, he was going to be the manager for a Manchester-based company that had set Natureland up. Sadly they went bust within the first year, which left Dad in the lurch a little bit. And to cut a long story short, Dad ended up taking Natureland on. How it got, in those days it was very much going to be very much a bog standard seafront sort of zoo, which was more acceptable back in the 60s. So there was going to be a great deal of conservation initially, no conservation projects initially. That's what he thought anyway. He opened in April 1965. But in June 1965, people were literally turning up on his doorstep with baby seals that they found on the beach. So that quickly developed which direction Natureland was going to take for the next 50 odd years.
So could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Richard Eden. It's myself, my wife, my brother, his wife Charlie, that are the current owners of Natureland. Dad's now retired. My son Matt and his daughter Daisy down here working, so hopefully they'll take it on in the future.
So, what type of seals do you have?
Right, well we have 2 sorts of seals that we get involved with. Like we just said, the ones that get born in June, they're the harbour seals or common seals. They get born at the end of June into July time. Between here and Norfolk, which is only about 17 miles across the Wash, is England's biggest colony of harbour seals. There's about 2,000 to 3,000 out there, and each year they haul out onto the sandbanks and have their pups out there. And most of the time things go well. Pups stay with mum, drink the milk and wean properly. But for whatever reason, they can get separated from the mums due to bad weather or strong tides, or perhaps mum's giving birth. You never really know the reason, but if the pup gets abandoned very early on, it will definitely die of starvation or dehydration. And that's where we step in really. When they get spotted on the beaches, we'll go assess the situation and bring them back to Natureland if necessary. The other sort of seal is the grey seal, which gets born end of November, December time. There's a big colony about 20 miles to the north of us at Donanock. About 2,000 pups get born there. And then just across the Wash again, which is again only 20 miles across to Blakeney, there's another 2,000 pups there. So there's an awful lot of grey seals being born at the moment, so we're seeing more grey seals than we used to 10 or 15 years ago.
How many seals do you reckon you dress within a month?
Well, it's really a sort of yearly thing, because there's peaks and troughs within the year. Obviously at pupping time we get very busy, or just after pupping time, and then once they're weaned, there can be weeks without us getting any in if the weather's nice and everything, until the next batch get born. So during the course of the year, well, we're on 32 at the moment this year. That's from June, the first of the common seals. That's where our year starts. I would expect another, where are we now, February? There'll be at least another 10 or 12 before, 10 or 12 more grey seals, which will bring us up to mid-40s, maybe up to 50, so which is fairly typical now. We say 30 to 50, but it's generally nearer 50 a year. Yeah.
How long would you say they stay here for?
Well, each one's different, but a typical seal, if it was brought in It'll be about 12 weeks, I think, from start to finish.
And then do you always release them back into the wild?
We do, yeah. There's one ready, it was actually ready on Thursday, but there's no point in putting it back when there's a Hurricane Doris blowing through, so Dippy will be going back on Monday, I think.
And do you think we as a community are making the problem with seals worse, or is it just...
Well, I think everyone's got a responsibility. We try to educate people while they're here. We try not to preach to them, but we try to gently educate holidaymakers while they're here to be as responsible as they can if they're down on the beach. Don't leave any litter, especially plastic. We do get quite a few seals that have got either fishing line or plastic bags or carrier bags stuck around their necks. And as the seal grows, obviously the plastic doesn't, so it embeds itself into the neck. So just things like that, really. Be more responsible. And we'll try to be as responsible as you can. And also, we try to tell them what to do if they do find a seal on the beach, if it's in difficulties. A logical idea would be to get it back in the water as soon as possible, but that's probably not the best idea, because if it's on its last legs anyway, it'll go out for half an hour and turn up somewhere else, and if it's in an unpopulated area, then nobody will report it back to us, so it could die instead of being rescued. So we tell them what to do if they do come across one on the beach.
So you'd say bring them to you?
Well, I would say keep your distance, keep an eye on the seal, give us a ring, and we'll assess it when we get there and use our expertise to say, yes, he wants to come back in, or he's just having a rest, so he doesn't need to come in.
And when you're hand rearing the seals, is it hard for them to go back into the wild? Or what do you
no, what we try to do, I mean, obviously to start with, it's very hands-on with the medication and teaching them how to feed on fish, because that's our technique. We don't, a seal won't feed from a bottle like a lamb, it won't suckle from a bottle, although it does suckle from its mom. It's a different kind of suckling technique. So we've always got them straight onto solids, no matter what age. So we teach them how to feed on fish very early on. That is quite a hands-on process, but typically it only takes, it can take anything from a couple of days to a week or 10 days for them to get the hang of fish. Once they've learned how to feed on fish, then it's a lot more hands-off, so you don't have to get quite so involved. And then it's all about not mollycoddling them at all and getting them used to humans, so they're straight out. The first place to visit is the hospital, that's where it's very hands-on, and then as soon as we can get them out into the little pool for the first taste of life in the water again, and then it's out into the mate rearing pool where it's more or less every man for himself without gaining weight. Because the last thing we want is them turning up on the beach every 2 hours looking for a guy in a navy sweatshirt.
How do you raise the majority of your funds to keep it going?
Well, that's a good question. We don't get any lottery money, we don't get any government grants or subsidies or anything like that at all. So that's where the rest of Natureland comes in, really. We're open to the public 362 days of the year. We get 3 days off over Christmas where we're not open. But we're open right through the year. Obviously, Skegness is a very popular place to be to come on your holiday. So we hope to attract a lot of visitors during the summer months, and it is simply through people coming to Natureland that we generate the funds that enable us to continue our work with the rescue pups. Each pup costs about £2,000 to put through the process, so you can see if we're getting almost 50 pups a year, it's the best part of £100,000 just on the seal rescue. That's before rent and rates and gas bills, and so it's an awful lot of money. So we need a lot of people to come and see us.
I see there's an adoption thing as well. There's like 3 different levels?
Yes, there is. There's a bronze, silver and a gold. This is just an extra little fundraising idea that if people want to do a little bit more than just come to see us, they can become what we call a friend of the Seal Hospital, and we send them a newsletter to tell them how the seals are doing, that they've probably seen when they've visited, a couple of free tickets, that sort of thing, a bit of an incentive. And we've had people doing that for years and years, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a fraction of what we need is the money raised on that. It's very useful, don't get me wrong, and it's a fraction of the price.
There was on your website, it said that you, instead of just seals, there's sometimes other animals that come in. Is that a regular thing?
No, it's not too regular. We do deal with seabirds. We're not dealing with seabirds at the moment with the avian flu situation, because we don't want to bring anything on to Natureland unnecessarily. But generally speaking, if there was, say, a gannet on the beach or a guillemot, we'd step in and help that out. We don't rescue things like badgers, foxes, pigeons stuck up chimneys and snakes under cookers. I mean, we get asked to do that thing. But we've got to draw a line somewhere. So we are strictly marine. Now and again we get involved with rescuing a porpoise that's got stuck on the beach. We did get involved with a walrus a long time ago. It's the only walrus to be seen in England for 180 years, and it ended up on Skegness Beach. So. Well, we did get that back to Iceland eventually, so but that was a bit of an unusual. We won't see that again, I'm sure. Unfortunately, when the likes of those sperm whales turned up, obviously we got called out to those, but there's so little you can do with those. Whales are not our area of expertise. We'll do everything we can to help, but seals are our main project here.
Was there a specific reason that you decided to focus on seals, or was it just...
No, it was purely by accident. Yeah. Actually, as I say, it was a surprise to Dad in his first year of trying to set the business up, sort of thing. And these people kept literally turning up on the doorstep. It was way before mobile phones or anything like that. So people used to pick them up, wrap them in the coats, and bring them to us. So we quickly had to develop a method that worked. So. But it's a great thing to be involved with, and being right on the edge of the colony, it's an ideal thing for us to be doing.
And in general, what would you say is the difference between like a zoo and like a sanctuary?
Well, certainly our sanctuary is all about dealing with the rescue pups that come in. I can't really speak for other zoos. Most zoos in this country now do have a conservation aspect to their work. Every zoo in the country has to apply for and get a zoo licence to be able to operate anyway, and part of that licensing requirements is to have a conservation project, whether it's a local one. Some of the bigger zoos might be helping out with rhinos in Africa or orangutans in Borneo or something like that. But it's very important these days to be involved in some kind of conservation. So the seals, is a very important part of our work, and it does, it does help with the zoo licensing as well, because that's just what they're looking for. We've obviously had inspections for the last. You get regular inspections every 3 years, and they're always delighted when they come around here, and we're always very happy with what they see and the work that we're doing. Legislation obviously gets tighter and tighter in this business, like it does in every other business. So there's always something that we've got to adapt to and change a little bit. Not particularly with the animals, but what can I think of that we never used to do? I can't think of anything. But there's all sorts of things you've got to do now to not just for your zoo license, but for health and safety and everything. There's more and more hoops that you've got to jump through. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that people generally ask me that you have. A good set of questions there. Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's good to cover the funding thing, because that covers the rest of nature and sort of thing.
Is there anything you'd like to mention? Or?
We have, over the years, we've released back to the wild about 760 seals back to the wild, which is a significant population amount compared to the numbers in the population out in the wash. We had 2 really terrible years dealing with the seal virus. Back in 1988, 50% of the seals got killed by a virus that came down from somewhere up north, and then in 2010, I think it came again, and 50% went down again, which is one of the reasons why we have our little breeding colony in the top there. They're resident to us, but any pups that are born in the pool, we put back to the wild. Had that 50% been even worse, had it been something crazy like 95 or 98% of the population, then these little captive populations of animals in animal collections around the country, can be a lifesaver for the species in the future. I'm thinking of giant pandas here and things like that that have done a lot better in captivity and been reintroduced to the wild. So that's one of the reasons why we keep our own breeding colony.
How did you get them, the breeding ones?
Well, two of them were in the virus years. One was actually born here. Two was in the virus years, and when it came to their release day, it was still absolutely. The sea was just full of dead seals, so there's no point putting them back into a virusy environment. So we had to keep those a lot longer than necessary, or than we normally would have done. So we decided, just in case they had become too unionised, that they were ideal candidates to join our breeding groups. But over the years, there's been, I don't know the exact number offhand, but it's between 30 and 40 pups that we've released from that bull back into the wild, so we feel it redresses the balance.